There's a famous recent argument from Peter van Inwagen and Jonathan Bennett that the principle of sufficient reason commits us to necessitarianism. Well, if R is sufficient for C, this is just to say that it's not possible that R could be the case while C fails to be the case.
What ends up happening is that because of the claim that explanands necessitate the explanandum, they get necessitarianism given the PSR. The key point is that they only got necessitarianism because of the assumption that sufficient explanation entails necessarily its explanandum. If reason is given to think that sufficient explanation doesn't entail its explanandum, we undercut their motivation for necessitarianism. So here are 4 quick reasons to think that this is false. Number 1, just very simply, sufficient doesn't mean necessitate, it means adequate or enough. 2, in most contexts where explanation is employed, we don't talk of necessitating explanation despite being satisfied with explanation. So for instance, if you see me making pizza, you ask why I'm making pizza, and I tell you I'm hungry, you accept that as explanation, when obviously my hunger doesn't necessitate me making pizza. 3, and this reason is stronger, most explanations posited in science are non-necessitating. So for example, evolution via natural selection does not necessitate biological adaptation. However, it's used as an explanation for it nonetheless. 4, the strongest reason, in quantum mechanics, for example with radioactive decay, not only are explanations non-necessitating, but they are intrinsically indeterministic, which just means that while for a given atom, the time at which it decays follows a general probability, the time at which it decays follows nothing additional, such that when it actually decays, nothing accounts for why it decayed exactly then, as opposed to a moment immediately prior or immediately later. It has a built-in randomness, so to speak. Hence intrinsic indeterministic explanation. To tie this all back to the PSR and necessitarianism, if this is true that we have indeterministic explanation, then despite the fact that R is necessary, and R is the thing that explains C, C doesn't have to be necessary. Why? Well, because R could produce C through an indeterministic process, intrinsic to R, of course. Thus, we could affirm the PSR, avoid necessitarianism, and live happily ever after.